The grand ballroom of Kensington Palace sparkled under 1,000 crystal lights. Kate Middleton stood near the magnificent golden throne, her emerald dress flowing like water around her feet. The room buzzed with the voices of diplomats, ministers, and royal family members who had gathered for the annual charity gala. Kate watched as William moved through the crowd with practiced ease. His navy uniform made him look every inch the future king he was born to be. She smiled as she saw him stop to talk with elderly Mrs. Henderson, the woman who had lost her husband in the war and now devoted her life to helping other military families. "Your Royal Highness?" a voice called softly behind her. Kate turned to see James, one of the palace staff members, approaching with a worried expression. "There's a phone call for you." "It's urgent." Kate's heart skipped a beat. Urgent calls during royal events usually meant trouble. She excused herself from the conversation she was having with the French ambassador's wife and followed James to a quiet corner of the palace. The phone felt heavy in her hands as she lifted it to her ear. "Hello? Kate, darling, it's your mother." The voice on the other end was shaky, filled with tears that hadn't yet fallen. "I'm at the hospital with your father. He collapsed at home. The doctors say it's his heart." The world seemed to stop spinning. Kate gripped the phone tighter, her knuckles turning white. Her father, Michael Middleton, had always been her rock. He was the man who taught her to ride a bicycle, who walked her down the aisle on her wedding day, who still called her his little girl even though she was now a duchess. "How bad is it?" Kate whispered, her voice barely audible over the distant sound of music and laughter from the ballroom. "They don't know yet. He's in surgery now. Kate, I need you here. I know you have your duties, but I need my daughter." Kate closed her eyes, feeling the weight of two worlds pressing down on her shoulders. In one world, she was Catherine, Duchess of Cambridge, with responsibilities to the crown and the people. In the other, she was simply Kate, a daughter whose father might be dying. "I'll be there as soon as I can," she promised, her voice stronger now. "Hold on, Mum. Everything will be okay." After hanging up, Kate stood alone in the corridor for a moment. The walls were covered with portraits of kings and queens from centuries past, their painted eyes seeming to watch her. She had studied their stories, learned about the sacrifices they made for duty, but none of those lessons had prepared her for this moment. Taking a deep breath, Kate returned to the ballroom. She needed to find William and explain what was happening. As she walked through the crowd, she noticed how everyone smiled and bowed slightly as she passed. These people looked up to her, expected her to be strong and perfect at all times. She found William speaking with the Prime Minister near the throne. The magnificent chair, covered in red velvet and adorned with precious stones, represented everything she had married into. It was beautiful and terrifying at the same time. "William," she said softly, touching his arm, "I need to speak with you privately." He excused them both and led her to an alcove behind the throne. "What's wrong? You look pale." "It's my father," Kate began, but her voice cracked on the words. She tried again, fighting to maintain the composure that had been drilled into her since joining the royal family. "He's in the hospital. His heart." William's face immediately softened with concern. "How serious is it?" "I don't know. He's in surgery. My mother needs me there, and I—" Kate paused, struggling with the words. "I need to go to him, William. I know we have obligations here, but I can't stay. I can't smile and make small talk when my father might be—" She couldn't finish the sentence. The thought of losing her father was too overwhelming to voice. William reached out and took her hands in his. "Of course you need to go. We'll make arrangements immediately. But the gala, the guests, the speeches you're supposed to give—" Kate's mind raced with all the disappointed people, the disrupted plans, the potential scandal of royal duties abandoned. "None of that matters right now," William said firmly. "Your father matters. Your family matters. We'll handle everything else." As they spoke, Kate felt the familiar pressure building in her chest. It started as a tight feeling around her heart and spread outward like water seeping through fabric. The ballroom suddenly felt too warm, too crowded, too demanding. She had experienced this before, usually during the most stressful moments of royal life. The panic would creep in slowly, then hit her all at once like a wave crashing against rocks. Her breathing would become shallow, her vision would blur, and she would feel as though she was drowning in expectations. "Kate!" William's voice seemed to come from far away, even though he was standing right beside her. "Kate, are you all right?" She tried to answer, but her throat felt closed. The room began to spin slightly, and she reached out to steady herself against the throne. The cool metal felt real under her palm, grounding her for a moment. "I need air," she managed to whisper. William immediately understood. He had seen her struggle with these moments before, though never quite this intensely. "Let's get you outside." But as they turned to leave, Lord Chamberlain approached them with a group of important guests who wanted to meet the Duchess. "Your Royal Highness, if I may introduce the delegation from—" "Not now," William said curtly, but the man continued talking, apparently not noticing Kate's distress. The voices around her became louder and more demanding. Someone was asking about her charity work, another person wanted to discuss an upcoming event, and Lord Chamberlain was still trying to make introductions. Kate felt trapped, surrounded by people who needed things from her when all she needed was to breathe. The pressure in her chest intensified. She could hear her heartbeat in her ears, drowning out the conversations around her. The faces looking at her expectantly seemed to multiply, each one adding another layer of obligation and duty. "Excuse me," she said faintly, but no one seemed to hear her. William was trying to politely end the conversations, but more people kept joining the group. Kate realized that to them, she wasn't a woman dealing with a family crisis. She was a duchess, a public figure, someone whose personal problems were secondary to her role. The weight of the crown, invisible but always present, felt heavier than ever. She thought about her father lying in a hospital bed, fighting for his life, while she stood in a palace being asked to smile and discuss charity galas. The room tilted slightly, and Kate knew she was losing the battle against the panic. Her breathing became rapid and shallow. The edges of her vision began to darken, and she felt herself beginning to sway. "William," she whispered, reaching for his arm. He turned immediately, seeing the pale color of her face and the way she was gripping the side of the throne for support. Without hesitation, he stepped closer, positioning himself to catch her if she fell. "Everyone needs to step back," he announced firmly to the crowd. "The Duchess needs some space." But it was too late. The combination of worry for her father, the overwhelming pressure of royal expectations, and the physical symptoms of panic had created a perfect storm. Kate felt her legs give way beneath her, and despite William's protective presence, she sank toward the floor beside the golden throne. The last thing she remembered before everything went dark was the gasps from the crowd and William's strong arms reaching for her, his voice calling her name with a desperation that cut through all the royal protocol in the world. Kate's eyes fluttered open to find herself lying on a sofa in the Queen's private study. The room was dimly lit, with only a table lamp casting warm light over the rich burgundy walls. William sat beside her, holding her hand, his face etched with worry. "There you are," he said softly, relief flooding his voice. "How do you feel?" Kate tried to sit up, but her head still felt fuzzy. "What happened? The gala?" "Dr. Matthews said you fainted from stress and exhaustion," William explained, helping her into a sitting position. The gala is still going on, but everyone understands you're not well. The memories came rushing back. Her father, the hospital, the overwhelming crowd of people wanting her attention when all she could think about was getting to her family. Kate's eyes filled with tears. "I need to go to the hospital, William. I need to see my father." "I know," he said gently. "The car is already waiting outside. But first, we need to talk." Kate looked at him questioningly. There was something in his tone that made her pay closer attention. "What you experienced tonight. It's not the first time, is it?" William's blue eyes searched her face. "Kate, I've noticed the signs for months. The way you sometimes disappear during events. How you've been losing weight. The times I've found you in the garden at 3 in the morning because you couldn't sleep." Kate felt her cheeks flush with embarrassment. She had tried so hard to hide her struggles, to be the perfect duchess everyone expected her to be. "I thought I was handling it better." "You've been handling everything alone," William said, his voice filled with emotion. "And that's my fault. I've been so focused on my own duties that I didn't see how much you were carrying." He stood up and walked to the window overlooking the palace gardens. "When I saw you collapse tonight, Kate, I realized something. I've been failing you as a husband. I've let the pressure of being royal come between us and what really matters." Kate watched him, seeing the tension in his shoulders. "William, you haven't failed me." He turned back to her, and she was surprised to see tears in his eyes. "Haven't I? When was the last time we had a real conversation that wasn't about schedules or public appearances? When was the last time I asked you how you were really feeling, not just how you were coping with your duties?" The questions hung in the air between them. Kate realized she couldn't remember the last time they had simply talked as husband and wife, not as Duke and Duchess. Their conversations had become about logistics, about appearances, about everything except their actual feelings. "The truth is," William continued, returning to sit beside her, "I've been struggling too. The weight of knowing I'll be king someday, the constant scrutiny, the pressure to never make mistakes. I thought if I could handle it all perfectly, it would be easier for you, but instead I just created more distance between us." Kate reached for his hand. "We've both been trying so hard to be what everyone else needs that we forgot to be what we need for each other." A soft knock interrupted them. Dr. Matthews, the royal physician, entered with a gentle smile. "How are you feeling, Your Royal Highness?" "Better, thank you. But I really need to get to the hospital to see my father." Dr. Matthews nodded. "I spoke with the hospital a few minutes ago. Your father came through surgery successfully. He's stable, but he'll need several weeks of recovery." Kate felt a massive wave of relief wash over her. Her father was going to be okay. But even with this good news, she knew something had fundamentally changed tonight. "Dr. Matthews," William said, "Kate has been under tremendous stress lately. What can we do to help her manage everything better?" The older man sat down across from them, his expression thoughtful. "The life you both lead is unlike anything most people can imagine. The constant public attention, the pressure to be perfect, the weight of representing the monarchy. It's not surprising that it would take a toll." He looked directly at Kate. "Have you been having trouble sleeping? Difficulty eating? Feelings of being overwhelmed by everyday tasks?" Kate nodded reluctantly. She had been experiencing all of these things, but had convinced herself it was just part of royal life. "These are signs that you need more support," Dr. Matthews continued. "Not just medical support, but emotional and practical support. You can't carry this burden alone." After the doctor left, Kate and William sat quietly for a few minutes. The sounds of the gala could still be heard faintly through the walls, but it felt like they were in their own private world. "I have an idea," William said finally. "What if we changed how we do things? What if we stopped trying to attend every single event, stopped saying yes to every request, and started making choices based on what we actually care about? Kate looked at him skeptically. The palace would never approve of that. The Queen expects us to maintain certain standards. Then we talk to the Queen, William said with surprising determination. Kate, my grandmother has been through her own struggles. She understands the cost of duty better than anyone. But she also knows that if we burn ourselves out, we won't be able to serve anyone. They made their way to the hospital together, driving through the quiet London streets. Kate felt different somehow, as if fainting by the throne had shaken something loose inside her. For months, she had been pretending that everything was fine, that she was managing the pressure perfectly. Tonight had forced her to admit that she wasn't superhuman. At the hospital, they found Kate's mother, Carol, sitting beside Michael's bed. He was awake, but groggy from the medication. When he saw Kate and William enter, his face lit up despite his obvious exhaustion. "There's my girl," he said weakly. "I heard you caused quite a scene at the palace tonight." Kate laughed through her tears. "I learned from the best drama queen in the family." "Hey now," Michael protested with a smile. "I'm a very dignified drama king, thank you very much." The family spent the next hour together, talking quietly and simply being present with each other. Kate noticed how William seemed more relaxed here, away from the palace and the pressure of royal protocols. He joked with her father, brought her mother tea, and held Kate's hand without worrying about how it looked to anyone else. As they prepared to leave, Michael called Kate over to his bedside. "Sweetheart, I want you to remember something. All those fancy titles and duties are just jobs. Being my daughter, being William's wife, being yourself, those are the things that really matter." Kate squeezed his hand. "I've been forgetting that lately." "Then remember it now," he said softly. "And don't forget that it's okay to ask for help. Even princesses need support sometimes." On the drive back to the palace, Kate and William talked more honestly than they had in months. They discussed their fears, their hopes, and their plans for making changes in how they approached their royal duties. "I want to make you a promise," William said as they pulled into the palace gates. "From now on, when you're struggling, you won't face it alone. And when I'm overwhelmed, I won't try to handle it by myself either." Kate looked at him, seeing not the future king, but the man she had fallen in love with at university. "That's a big promise to make." "Then it's a good thing I'm serious about keeping it," he replied. As they walked back into the palace together, Kate realized that her collapse by the throne had actually been the beginning of something important. It had forced them both to acknowledge that their marriage and their well-being were more important than perfect royal appearances. The real challenge would be remembering this lesson in the days and weeks to come. 3 months after the night Kate collapsed by the throne, the changes in their lives were visible to everyone who knew them well. The royal couple had requested a private meeting with Queen Elizabeth, and to their surprise, she had been more understanding than they had dared to hope. "I've been watching you both," the Queen had said during that meeting. "You've been trying so hard to be perfect that you've forgotten to be human. The monarchy needs people who can connect with others, not people who pretend they have no struggles." With the Queen's blessing, Kate and William had made significant changes to their approach to royal duties. They reduced their public appearances by 30%, choosing to focus on causes they genuinely cared about rather than simply showing up everywhere they were invited. Kate had also begun seeing a counselor who specialized in helping public figures manage stress and anxiety. Dr. Sarah Williams was a warm woman in her 50s who had worked with politicians, celebrities, and other members of the royal family over the years. "The pressure you feel is real," Dr. Williams had explained during one of their sessions. "But your worth as a person isn't determined by how perfectly you perform your royal duties. You're valuable because of who you are, not just what you do. These therapy sessions had helped Kate understand that her struggles weren't a sign of weakness or failure. They were a natural response to an unnatural amount of pressure and scrutiny. On a crisp autumn morning, Kate stood in the same ballroom where she had collapsed months earlier. Today, however, she wasn't there for a formal event. William had surprised her by arranging a private dance lesson, just for the two of them. "Remember our wedding day?" William asked, as he took her hand and led her to the center of the room. "How nervous you were about dancing in front of everyone?" Kate laughed. "I was terrified I'd trip over my dress and fall flat on my face in front of the entire world." "But you didn't," William said, pulling her closer as the music began to play. "You were graceful and beautiful, and everyone could see how happy we were." As they moved together across the polished floor, Kate felt a peace she hadn't experienced in months. There were no photographers, no schedules to keep, no one to impress except each other. "I've been thinking," William said as they swayed to the music, "about that night when you fainted. I realized something important." "What's that?" "I fell in love with Kate Middleton, not the Duchess of Cambridge. I married you because of your kindness, your humor, your strength. But somewhere along the way, I started treating you like you had to be someone else to be worthy of this life." Kate felt tears prick her eyes, but they were good tears this time. "I started believing I had to be someone else too. I thought if I could just be perfect enough, everyone would accept me." "You don't need to be perfect," William said softly. "You need to be yourself. That's what the people really want to see. That's what I want to see." Their conversation was interrupted by the arrival of Kate's parents. Michael Middleton was walking with a cane now, but his color was good, and his smile was as bright as ever. "Are we interrupting?" Carol asked with a grin. "Because watching you two dance is better than any television show." "Dad!" Kate exclaimed, rushing to hug him carefully. "You're supposed to be resting." "I've been resting for 3 months," Michael complained good-naturedly. "Your mother won't let me do anything more exciting than read the newspaper." "Because the last time you got excited, you ended up in the hospital," Carol reminded him. As the family chatted, Kate noticed how different the atmosphere felt from that terrible night months ago. Then the palace had felt like a prison of expectations and duties. Now it felt like a home where people who cared about each other could simply spend time together. "You know," Michael said, settling into a chair near the throne, "I've been thinking about that night when you collapsed. At first I felt guilty that my health crisis had caused you so much stress." "Dad, that wasn't your fault," Kate protested. "I know that now," he continued. "But I also realized something else. You needed to fall so that William could learn to catch you. You needed to reach your breaking point so that you both could recognize what was really important." William nodded thoughtfully. "He's right. If that night hadn't happened, we might have continued pretending everything was fine until something much worse occurred." "And more importantly," Michael added with a knowing smile, "you learned that it's okay to not be okay sometimes. Even royals are allowed to be human." Later that evening, Kate and William attended a charity event for mental health awareness. It was their first major public appearance since making changes to their schedule, and Kate had been nervous about it all week. But as she stood on the stage, looking out at an audience of people who had faced their own struggles with anxiety and depression, she felt a sense of purpose she had never experienced before. "A few months ago," Kate began her speech, her voice clear and steady, "I learned an important lesson about the difference between being strong and pretending to be strong." She went on to share, in carefully chosen words, some of what she had learned about managing stress and asking for help. She didn't mention the specific details of her collapse, but she spoke honestly about the pressure of public life and the importance of mental health support. The audience responded with warmth and appreciation. Kate could see in their faces that her honesty had connected with them in a way that no perfectly polished royal speech ever could. After the event, as they drove home through the London streets, William reached over and took her hand. "I'm proud of you," he said. "Tonight you weren't performing as the Duchess of Cambridge. You were speaking as Kate, sharing your real experiences to help other people." "It felt different," Kate admitted. "Scary, but also freeing." "That's because you were being authentic," William said, "and authentic is always better than perfect." When they arrived back at the palace, Kate found herself once again standing near the throne where she had collapsed months earlier. But this time, instead of feeling overwhelmed by what it represented, she felt grateful. The throne was still a symbol of duty and responsibility, but it no longer felt like a burden she had to carry alone. She had learned that true strength came from acknowledging her vulnerabilities and accepting support from the people who loved her. William joined her, wrapping his arms around her from behind. "What are you thinking about?" "I'm thinking about promises," Kate said, leaning back against him. "The promises we made when we got married, the promise you made that I would never fall alone, and the promise we made to ourselves to be honest about our struggles." "Those are good promises to keep," William said. "They are," Kate agreed. "And I'm thinking about how falling down doesn't make you weak. It's staying down that makes you weak. Getting back up, accepting help, learning from what happened, that's what makes you strong." As they stood together in the quiet ballroom, Kate reflected on how much had changed since that terrible night. She had learned to set boundaries, to ask for help when she needed it, and to prioritize her mental health without guilt. More importantly, she and William had rediscovered their partnership. They had stopped trying to handle everything separately and had started approaching their challenges as a team. The pressure of royal life hadn't disappeared. There were still difficult days, overwhelming schedules, and moments when the weight of public expectation felt crushing. But now, when those moments came, Kate knew she didn't have to face them alone. She had William's support, her family's love, professional help when she needed it, and most importantly, she had learned to be compassionate with herself. The perfect Duchess she had tried so hard to become had been replaced by something better, a real person who could connect with others through shared humanity rather than distant perfection. The golden throne still sat majestically in the center of the room, representing centuries of duty and service. But Kate no longer saw it as something that demanded she sacrifice her well-being. Instead, she saw it as a reminder that true service came from bringing your authentic self to your responsibilities, not from pretending to be someone you weren't. As they turned to leave the ballroom together, Kate knew that whatever challenges lay ahead, she would face them with honesty, support, and the knowledge that sometimes the most important thing you can do is allow yourself to be human. The night she had sunk to the floor by the throne had been one of the darkest of her life, but it had also been the beginning of a journey toward authenticity, partnership, and a kind of strength she had never known existed. William had kept his promise that she would never fall alone, and together, they had built something stronger than perfection. They had built a marriage based on truth, support, and unconditional love.